Lori, I was thinking the other day I think about this a lot, by the way, how average and ordinary it is when people get into relationships. It's almost as if there's this default template that people use, and then they get into the relationship and they don't know where to go from there. Like it's sort of like they just kind of, oh, now we're together, or we're together, but we don't know anything about each other than what we like. And I find that to be a recipe for failure in relationship.
So you mean it's a recipe for failure because they haven't really vetted each other?
I think, yes, I think it's really a function of us trying to be together and not lose each other too quickly, or too, like, it's almost like as if I don't want to lose this person because I'm just starting to get to know them and I like them. And oh my goodness, they like me. And so there's this mutual juice that's happening, but there's no real conversations going on. There's no talking about what are my values and do we align? Do we align long term in our values? I mean, do we have similar interests, but do we have similar um, you know, goals and vision and passion for a lifelong, I don't know, goal of what it is that I want to have in life? And so sometimes I feel like people don't even talk about it. It's not something that gets brought up at all.
It's the same thing as them not having the safer sex conversation until
Right.
they're in bed.
Right.
So now you're talking about they're together.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be together and they aren't having the conversation that makes all the difference in the world to find out who they really are.
And when they don't have that conversation early, they find themselves unable to have it later. Like it's
Yeah.
almost, and then it becomes like, oh, I don't want to lose this person, but I really need to know.
Well, okay, this came up in something I was doing yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
If you were on a first date,
Mm-hmm.
would you talk about whether you wanted to have babies or not? And marriage?
If I was on a first date,
yeah,
and I was vibing with the person and I
Yeah.
liked them,
yeah.
I would say, I would like to have an adult conversation about relationships
And so you would have that like on the second date?
on the first date.
But you would have it on the first date.
I would have it on the first date. I would say, I'd like to have an adult conversation about relationships. And I would then go through our process for doing a safe sex conversation. We call it safe sex, but really
Safer.
it's more, it's
It's not
more,
safe. Nothing's ever safe.
well, it's safer, but I consider it to be a real relationship conversation. Yes, you're talking about sex, but you're also talking about what matters to you in a partner and what you're looking for in a partner. And if that person on the first date looks at you and goes, I'm not really looking for a partner, that's not what I want. Well, and now it's out in the open and you're not wondering on date number 7.
Well, you kind of said that.
Mm-hmm.
You said,
Absolutely.
don't try. You didn't say it on the first time, but you said,
when we had our conversation,
you said, should we date after we saw that our values were similar, but
mm-hmm.
not until a little later on did you say, don't try to have a relationship with me. I'm not good at it.
Right. And I said the reason why was because I feel like I dilute inside of relationships. So what I wanted to have was something much more autonomous and sovereign, where you are who you are and I am who I am. And then we treat each other with respect and we have that inside of our boundaries and our values, and we communicate it really, really well.
And really soon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the thing you're ranting about is people putting off having really serious qualifying conversations early on. And by the time they've spent a lot of time with a person, then they put it off altogether because they're too invested. Like they're invested in being together, but they're not even sure of the foundation. There's no foundation.
No foundation. And it's almost like as if, well, this one was a catch and I caught him, so I don't want to lose him, so I'm not going to say anything. Right. And then all of a sudden you find out that you have boundaries and this person is violating those boundaries. You don't know what to do about it.
So that's a question. That's
the big conversation.
Let's roll it back to for a minute, because it that's a byproduct, if you will, of people pleasing.
Mm.
So that's like the recipe for codependency.
Hmm.
I'm going to do whatever pleases this person because I'm a people pleaser. I don't know how to be anything other. That's how I was raised. And I haven't spent enough time investing in myself in whatever the programs are, which we could mention quite a few, finding out who I really am as a sovereign being, not a people pleaser.
I want to agree with you and disagree with you at the same time, because I want to give the people pleasers kind of I want them to know that it naturally happens with people pleasers. However, everybody's doing it. Like a high percentage of couples that we talk to and people that we've talked to, they're all saying basically the same thing, that they kind of got into a relationship by default, but there was no design. And I think the reason for that is a lack of education. So it's more than just the people pleasers that are experiencing this. It's just about everybody who's experiencing this, unless they've had some real training.
Okay.
Fair?
Yeah. Great point. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, here's what I'd like to say.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in that situation and you have never been trained on actually how to have an adult conversation about relationships, then buckle up and get ready, because we're going to teach you how.
Listen, you don't have to stay stuck. Healing is possible and love can be renewed. If you're ready to take that next step, join us for the Navigating Love's Challenges webinar on July 12th from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern. Click the link in the comments and reserve your spot. Let's start this healing journey together. I promise you're not alone.